The American Desert, Monument Valley sunsets, a Route 66 road trip, freedom, wide open spaces, and endless possibility. That is the story America tells itself. That is the version you see on travel blogs and in car commercials. But here is what the postcards do not show. Towns that the desert swallowed whole. Places where the land itself seems to fight back against anyone who tries to stay. Communities that thrived for decades and then vanished in a single generation. These are real places, documented by government surveys, investigated by federal agencies, and feared by locals to this day. Now, let us begin. Number 10. We start in Kern County, California, with a place called California City. It is the third largest city by land area in the entire state of California. Over 200 square miles of planned streets, avenues, and boulevards, and almost none of them lead to an actual house. In the 1950s, a real estate developer named M. Penn Phillips bought over 80,000 acres of Mojave Desert and drew up plans for a metropolis to rival Los Angeles. He mapped out an artificial lake, a central park, room for hundreds of thousands of residents. Roads were paved, street signs were erected, lots were numbered, plotted, and sold to eager investors. And then nobody came. The lake was never filled. The park was never built. The desert heat and the absence of any real infrastructure scared most buyers away. Phillips eventually abandoned the development and disappeared from the project entirely. Today, California City has roughly 12,000 residents scattered across a grid designed for a population many times that size. The city is currently declining at a rate of nearly 4% per year. Satellite images reveal miles of cracked pavement being slowly swallowed by sand and scrub. Street signs stand in open desert, marking intersections with no buildings in any direction. Your GPS will happily route you down named roads that end in nothing but dust and silence. A city that was never born is strange enough. But what happens when a Route 66 town is alive one day and dead the next? Number 9. On the border between Texas and New Mexico, straddling the state line itself, there once sat a small town called Glen Rio. It was a vibrant stop along historic Route 66. Motels, petrol stations, and diners served travelers making the great American road trip in every direction. The state line ran right through the middle of town. Bars were on the New Mexico side because Texas was a dry county. Petrol stations were on the Texas side because New Mexico charged higher fuel tax. Glen Rio existed because of the road. It was the road. And when Interstate 40 bypassed it in 1975, moving a few miles to the south, the town died within months. Not gradually, not over years, within months. Every single person left. The buildings still stand exactly as they were. Faded motel signs advertise rooms for the night. Crumbling petrol pumps cast shadows across empty concrete forecourts. Tumbleweeds drift through open doorways. Curtains hang in windows. The silent Interstate 40 is visible in the distance, a river of traffic that will never stop here again. Glen Rio was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2007, not as a living town, as a monument to what happens when a highway moves. A town killed by a highway is melancholy. But what about a resort paradise that was poisoned by its own lake? Number 8. In the far southeast corner of California, 223 feet below sea level, sits the lowest community in the United States. It is called Bombay Beach, and it sits on the shore of the Salton Sea. During the 1950s, this was a glamorous resort destination. Frank Sinatra visited. The Beach Boys played here. Bing Crosby came for the fishing. Luxury hotels lined a sparkling inland sea. Water skiing, boating, cocktails on the sand. By the 2020 census, the population had collapsed to just 231 people. The lake that once drew the rich and famous had turned into something else entirely. The Salton Sea has no outlet to the ocean. It is fed by agricultural runoff laden with pesticides and fertilizer. Over the decades, salinity increased until the water became nearly twice as salty as the Pacific Ocean. The fish began to die, not a few, not hundreds, millions. A Pacific Institute report from 2019 found that more than 97% of the fish in the Salton Sea were gone. As the lake retreated, it exposed thousands of acres of toxic lakebed. Dust clouds containing arsenic and selenium now blow across the communities that remain. Imperial County has some of the worst air quality in the United States. Residents report chronic respiratory problems. Children suffer from elevated asthma rates. California has earmarked nearly $500 million to attempt restoration, but community organizers estimate it will take tens of billions to save what remains. In 2025, the water level continues to recede rapidly. The old docks now stand hundreds of feet from the waterline. Among the ruins, artists have created strange installations from wrecked cars and abandoned furniture. Sculptures that look like something from a post-apocalyptic film stand where families once sunbathed. A resort destroyed by poison water is devastating. But what about a town built on top of a mass grave? Number 7. Along Old Route 66, roughly 30 miles east of Flagstaff, Arizona, there is a cluster of blackened stone ruins known as Two Guns. The name comes from a man who called himself Harry Two Gun Miller, but the story begins long before him. In the 1870s, a raiding party of Apache warriors was tracked to a cave by their Navajo pursuers. The Navajo sealed the entrance and lit fires at the mouth. Every Apache inside suffocated. The cave became known as the Death Cave. The remains were left where they fell. In the 1920s, Miller leased the land and turned the massacre site into a roadside tourist attraction. He built a zoo, a curio shop. He charged visitors to walk into the cave, still containing human bones. Miller was later involved in a shooting that killed his business partner. The tourist attraction caught fire under suspicious circumstances. Miller was evicted from the property. Subsequent owners faced similar misfortune. Fires kept returning. Businesses failed. Every venture on this land ended in violence, flames, or financial ruin. The site was fully abandoned by the 1970s. Today, the blackened stone walls stand open to the sky. Graffiti covers what remains. The dark mouth of the cave is still visible. Above, the roar of Interstate 40 echoes over the silence below. According to Navajo tradition, land soaked in that kind of suffering does not forget. The Apache dead were never properly laid to rest. The bones were left in the cave. A cursed cave is unsettling. But what about an entire city of 10,000 people that the desert simply swallowed in 15 years? Number 6. In 1904, two prospectors named Shorty Harris and Ed Cross discovered high-grade gold ore in the desert hills on the western edge of Nevada, near Death Valley. Within a year, thousands of people were pouring in. The town that sprang up was called Rhyolite. By 1907, Rhyolite had electric streetlights, water mains, telephones, 2 newspapers, a hospital, a school, an opera house, and a stock exchange. Its population reached somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 people. There were 50 saloons. 3 railways brought supplies and carried gold out. One resident built an entire house from 50,000 beer and liquor bottles, the glass glinting in the desert sun. Then the mines started to fail. The financial panic of 1907 cut off investment, and the desert began to reclaim what had been taken from it. By 1920, the United States Census recorded Rhyolite's population at 120. By 1922, a newspaper reported finding only one resident, a 92-year-old man. He died in 1924. After that, there was no one. 10,000 people, 50 saloons, an opera house, gone in less than 2 decades. Today, the skeletal remains of the bank building stand against the desert sky. The bottle house still glitters. Rusted mining equipment sits where workers left it over a century ago. Visitors report hearing unexplained sounds after dark. Paranormal investigators have recorded electronic voice phenomena at the grave of a woman named Mona Bell. The scene is haunting. But the next desert holds something far darker, a cursed mine surrounded by mountains that have claimed over 600 lives. Number 5. East of Phoenix, Arizona, the Superstition Mountains rise from the desert floor like a wall of jagged teeth. The Akimel O'odham people, the indigenous inhabitants of this region, warned everyone who would listen. They spoke of strange sounds inside the mountains, people disappearing, mysterious deaths. The mountains were named the Superstitions in honor of these warnings. In 1848, a large party from the Peralta family attempted to carry gold out of the mountains and back to Mexico. According to legend, they were ambushed by Apaches. Nearly the entire party was killed. Only 1 or 2 members escaped. Decades later, a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz claimed to have found the Peralta gold. He became known as the Lost Dutchman. Waltz died in 1891 without revealing the location of the mine, and so the dying began. In 1931, a treasure hunter named Adolph Ruth disappeared in the Superstitions. His skull was found 6 months later with 2 bullet holes in it. In the 1940s, a 62-year-old treasure hunter named James Cravey arrived by helicopter with friends watching. He told everyone he knew exactly where the gold was and set out for 10 days. When the helicopter returned, Cravey was gone. His camp was intact. Only 2 days of food had been eaten. His headless body was found first. His skull was not recovered until 6 months later. No one knows who killed him or why his head was removed. In 1958, a campsite was found in the mountains. No people, just blood-stained blankets in the tent. George Johnston, president of the Superstition Mountain Museum, has stated that 4 to 5 hikers die in these mountains every single year. Many sources estimate that over 600 people have lost their lives searching for the Dutchman's gold. The gold may or may not exist. The dead are very real. A mountain that devours treasure hunters is terrifying. But the next town tells the story of something even more disturbing. This is a place where the poison came, not from the land, but from the work itself. Number 4. Deep in the Chihuahuan Desert of West Texas, near Big Bend National Park, sits one of the most remote inhabited places in the continental United States. It is called Terlingua. In the early 1900s, Terlingua was a mercury mining hub. The town had a school, a store, and even a theater. Workers extracted cinnabar ore and heated it to release liquid mercury, known as quicksilver. The work was lethal. Prolonged exposure to mercury vapor caused tremors, madness, organ failure, and death. The miners called it the Shakes. Many of the workers were Mexican laborers paid poverty wages. Company records from the era are sparse. When the mines finally closed in the 1940s, the companies packed up and left behind a graveyard of workers whose names were never recorded and whose families were never compensated. The cemetery at Terlingua contains hundreds of unmarked wooden crosses, rows upon rows of graves belonging to people whose identities have been lost to time. Crumbling adobe walls now sit alongside a small community of artists and eccentrics who have moved in over the decades. Terlingua is famous today for its annual chili cook-off, but the adobe ruins remain. The unnamed dead remain. The desert has covered most of the evidence, but not all of it. A town poisoned by its own industry is grim, but the next location involves not a mine, but the open desert itself. And 11 women who were buried in it, one, by a killer who was never found. Number 3. On the West Mesa of Albuquerque, New Mexico, there is a stretch of desert that changed everything people thought they knew about their city. In February 2009, a woman walking her dog came upon a human bone protruding from the sand near the intersection of 118th Street and Dennis Chavez Boulevard. Investigators began digging. They did not find one body. They found 11. 11 women and an unborn child were buried in the desert between 2001 and 2005. Their ages ranged from 15 to 32. 10 of the 11 had connections to drug addiction and to street-level survival. The youngest, 15-year-old Jamie Barella, was last seen leaving a family gathering with her cousin Evelyn Salazar. Both were among the dead. It took nearly a year to identify all of the remains using DNA evidence and dental records. The investigation became one of the largest in New Mexico history, involving the Albuquerque Police Department and the FBI. Over 1,400 tips were submitted. 7 land searches were conducted. Potential suspects were identified, including a man named Lorenzo Montoya, who lived less than 3 miles from the burial site. Dirt trails led from his trailer park directly to the graves. Montoya had a history of picking up and assaulting women on the streets. In 2006, he raped and strangled a teenage girl. Her boyfriend arrived and shot Montoya dead. He was holding a flashlight when he died. The girl was wrapped in a blanket by his vehicle. Despite this, investigators have never officially named a suspect. The case remains open. A $100,000 reward remains uncollected. And here is what makes this story even more disturbing. The burial site was on land that had been earmarked for housing development. After the investigation concluded, that development went ahead. Families now live in houses built directly on top of where those women lay for years, undiscovered. Nobody knew they were there. Nobody was looking. A serial killer's desert graveyard is horrifying, but the next entry goes back further in time. To an entire community, frozen in place by a force even more relentless than violence. Number 2. High in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains of California, at an elevation of 8,375 feet, sits the ghost town of Bodie. It is one of the best preserved ghost towns in the entire United States, and it receives roughly 200,000 visitors every year. In 1859, a prospector named William Bodie discovered gold in a stream near what is now called Bodie Bluff. He never saw the fortune that followed. He died in a blizzard shortly after making his discovery. By 1879, the town had exploded to nearly 10,000 people. There were 65 saloons, a red light district, opium dens, and daily shootouts. Murders, bar fights, and holdups were so common that the local newspaper reportedly stopped reporting them because they were no longer considered news. Then the gold ran out. By 1920, only 120 people remained. By 1942, mining ceased entirely. 2 large fires in 1892 and 1932 destroyed over 90% of the original structures. What remains today is preserved by the California State Park System in a condition they call arrested decay. Over 100 wooden buildings stand exactly as they were abandoned. Bottles still sit on shelves. Desks remain in the schoolhouse. Weights lie on the floor of the gymnasium. You can peer through windows and see kitchens with plates still set on the table. But Bodie is known for something else: the curse. Park rangers receive letters every year from visitors who took something from the town: a nail, a piece of wood, a fragment of glass. The letters describe car accidents, sudden illness, financial collapse, and family emergencies. The writers beg the rangers to return the stolen items. The rangers keep a file of these letters. Some run to several pages, describing in harrowing detail the misfortune that followed. Whether you believe in curses or not, the sheer volume of reports is difficult to dismiss. 10,000 people lived here once. Now only the buildings remain, standing guard in the thin mountain air, watching every visitor who walks through. A cursed ghost town that punishes the living is extraordinary. But our final destination goes back over 700 years, to the greatest vanishing act in the history of the American desert. Number 1. In the southwest corner of Colorado, in Montezuma County, there is a place called Mesa Verde. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the only one in the state. The park protects over 5,000 archaeological sites, including 600 cliff dwellings carved into the sandstone canyon walls. The people who built them are known as the ancestral Puebloans. They lived on and around this mesa for over 700 years, farming corn and beans and squash on the flat ground above, and storing food in stone rooms cut into the rock. They developed sophisticated irrigation systems. They created pottery and textiles of remarkable beauty. They established trade networks that stretched across the Southwest. And at some point in the late 1190s, they began building something extraordinary: stone cities tucked beneath the overhanging cliffs. The largest of these is called Cliff Palace. It contains over 150 rooms and 23 kivas, the circular underground chambers used for ceremonies and community gatherings. Only about 125 people lived in Cliff Palace, but across the wider Mesa Verde region, the population numbered in the tens of thousands. They built and expanded these cliff dwellings for nearly a century. Then, by the late 1270s, they began to leave. Tree ring data confirms a severe drought that lasted from 1276 to 1299. But drought alone does not explain what happened. By 1300, every single person was gone. Thousands of men, women, and children walked away from dwellings their families had occupied for generations. They sealed some of the rooms as though intending to return. They left behind pottery, tools, clothing, and food stores, corn cobs in storage rooms, sandals by doorways, handprints on the walls. They never came back. The cliff dwellings sat untouched for nearly 6 centuries until 1888, when 2 ranchers named Richard Wetherill and Charlie Mason stumbled upon them while looking for stray cattle. They found the rooms exactly as they had been left. Modern Pueblo peoples, including the Hopi and Zuni, are believed to be descendants of these ancient builders. They consider Mesa Verde sacred ground. But no one has returned to live in those cliff dwellings. 700 years later, the handprints are still on the walls. The corn is still in the storage rooms. The sandals still sit by the doorways. Everything they built is still standing, waiting, but no one has come home.